Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a review of the new Dominique Cosmetics Latte 2 palette. Also going to be comparing it to the original Latte palette that I love so much. So if you guys want to see a comparison of both, swatch comparisons, and an eye look with this new palette, then just keep on watching. Alright, so the Latte 2 palette is now available for $42. It's the exact same shape and size as the original Latte palette, exact same layout as well. There are 10 shades, they are huge. There's a mirror as well. There's 7 matte shades and then 3 shimmer shades. It's pretty similar in terms of like this color scheme, concept at least, with the original Latte palette. Like we have mostly neutrals and then 2 random little pops of colors in the corner. So I want to give you guys a comparison of all the swatches in both palettes. That way you can see the differences in both of them, see if there's any similarities, and see which one you might prefer. Alright, so before we get into the swatch comparisons with both palettes, I just want to show you guys swatches of the Latte 2 palette so you can get a feel for it. Basically, it's going to be a more neutral toned version of the original Latte palette. Very similar concept, very similar layout, very similar shades as you can probably tell. But definitely the transition shades are a lot more neutral. Then we have some lighter tones and just like a little bit of a different color scheme. I'll get into it a little bit more with the comparisons, but I just want to show you guys swatches of just this palette so you can see what they look like. But now getting into both palettes, Latte 1 and Latte 2. Honestly, the Latte 2 palette looked a little bit different in person compared to when I was seeing it online or seeing spoilers for this palette. I will say that these 2 shades over here are just kind of really light, so it's a little hard to work with, at least on my complexion. Like café con leche basically turns into nothing on my skin, and frothy is very similar to like this yellow shade in the original Latte palette that I just like to use as a base to set my eyeshadow. So to me, that's totally fine, but café con leche could definitely be a little bit darker. It could be like just as vibrant as this shade over here, Blonde Rose. I just think it's like very light, and it also pulls a little bit more cool tone. Some of these other shades are more cool tone as well, but if you wanted to like blend café con leche and Blonde Rose together, it's just gonna be like a muddy mess because it's like one kind of orangey shade and one really taupey shade. So that shade really throws me off on the palette and makes it a little bit difficult to work with because everything else is very light or very dark, so you don't really have a good base for a transition shade other than Blonde Rose, which is what I ended up using today. Some other days I've actually just used some of the transition shades from the original Latte palette with this palette, with some of the shimmers in here. So in the original Latte palette, you can definitely see there's a lot more variations with the transition shades. You have these over here that are more warm tone, and you can layer these together. Also this orange shade over here, you can layer up as well. It's not too deep. And then you do get this darker matte brown shade. And here we have like 2 very similar matte brown shades. One is a little bit more burgundy, and then one is just like a true neutral brown. These are shades Cafecito and Coffee Beans. So it kind of throws me off. Like these shades could have been done a little bit differently. Like if you just switch out 1 or 2 shades, it would make the palette way more cohesive to me. But I feel like I have a little bit of gaps, especially for my complexion, since this shade is way too light for me. And then this shade, I don't really want to use like something really orange with every other eye look in here. So those are definitely the pros that the original Latte palette has over the Latte 2 palette. Like the transition shades in here are definitely way more convenient with like the kind of eye looks I like to do. I just think it's like a little bit more of an easy palette to use because you do get some of those shades that aren't super deep. Like with this palette, I do kind of have to commit to a little bit of smokier eye looks with these deeper transition shades. So let's get into the actual shade comparison. So normally when I do comparisons, I'll line up like the most similar shades. But if you can see like the palettes, the layouts are kind of similar. So I just went ahead and did like the same thing when I swatched them, so you can see the layout of both palettes. And there's really not any overlap other than these 2 matte dark browns in each palette. Those are the shades Coffee Bean and Mocha up here, like these two matte browns. And then a little bit the shade Frappe in the Latte 2 palette is similar between Macchiato and Creme Brulee, just like a standard neutrally champagne color. Like you can see, this is the shade in the Latte 2 palette. Kind of similar to both of these over here in Latte 1, but that's really just like the two similarities between both palettes. Other than that, you do get a lot of differences, like I said, especially with the transition shades. Over here again, Latte 1 and Latte 2. I think they do look pretty similar, but you can definitely see Latte 1 pulls a bit more warm tone, and I do prefer warm tones as well. And then you get some more neutrals and deeper colors with Latte 2. But I just find that the original palette is a little bit more maybe like beginner friendly, a little bit better for quick eye looks since there's more like smokier, deeper shades in Latte 2. But that's gonna be everything for all of the shade comparisons. I'm gonna get into the tutorial so you guys can see how I did this eye look today using the Latte 2 palette. All right, so getting into the palette, I'm gonna start off with the shade Blonde Rose, which is a little bit of like a peachy, warmer shade. I think I'm gonna go in for more of like a bronzy gold look and use some of the darker shimmer shades. I'm just blending that out with a Sigma E40. It's basically what I use to start off all my eye looks for whatever transition shade I'm using. I do really wish there was a transition shade in this palette that was darker than this, but not as dark as these over here. That's really the biggest letdown in this palette. I'm gonna go in with Cafecito on the outer corner of my eye. I'm just gonna start off lightly and then slowly build that up. But that is really what makes it a little bit difficult to do like a straightforward look with this palette. We don't have that like medium tone transition shade. And I'm gonna take this shade Drizzle, I'm gonna apply that all over my eye, and then I think I'm gonna go in with Ice Latte and just apply that on my outer corner. But I'll start off with this kind of bronzy gold shade. I love shades like this because it's not like a yellow gold. So it's really easy to pull off, especially with any blush, highlighter, or like lip color, because a lot of times like something that's too gold, too yellow, doesn't work with like everything else. This is like the most ideal bronzy shade for me. I swear I'm gonna hit pan on this shade first in the palette. I feel like this is also very Kristen Dominique look. I feel like she always does something like really bronzy and smoky. I'm just gonna take the other side of the exact same brush since it's already damp, and I'm gonna go in with iced coffee. I didn't want to wet a new brush just because I don't feel like dirtying another brush, and I also don't want it to be extremely damp. I just want it to be a little bit so it sticks on without being like too overpowering. All right, so that is basically most of the eye look. I'm gonna clean up the outer corner just a little bit, but I wanna go in with a brown eyeliner first. This is from Urban Decay. It's sharp enough, I think, for me to put on right now. This is the shade Double Life. It's just like a copper shade. It's like one of my favorite eyeliners. All right, so eyeliner is on, and going into my lower lash line. Still, I wish there was a transition shade because I don't wanna necessarily, I guess I'll go in with Blonde Rose just a little bit and then maybe add one of the darker shades. But I could totally use a medium brown in here. So go ahead and add in the tiniest little bit of Cafecito. Just don't want it to get too dark on my lower lash line. And then I will also add in a little bit of iced coffee as well. I really like this shade. This would be a really pretty lid color as well. Oh, let me go ahead and take Frappe. I'm gonna go in with another wet brush. I'll go ahead. I said I didn't want to wet a second brush, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I'll just take another Morphe M124 and go in with Frappe for an inner corner highlight. I feel like that's gonna really finish off the look. Just make it a little bit more, just pop out a little bit. All right, so we are all set with the inner corner highlight. This side right here is a little bit crazy. I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of concealer right here to clean that up. And that's gonna be it for this eye look. I'm obviously gonna put on mascara, lashes, and I think that's gonna be it for the eyeshadow. I think I used about half the palette. Basically, yeah, most of the neutral parts of the palette. I really just don't see myself wearing these two shades at all. But basically, that's gonna be my go-to look with the palette. That's what I've been liking so far. Also, I've been using Frappe as an all-over color as well as a lid shade as well. Really like that look. It makes it a little bit more cool tone as well, which I really like. And I've also been mixing this shade with some other shades, actually from the original Latte palette too, just because it has those softer transition shades for like a softer everyday look. But that is going to be everything for this tutorial. It will look a little bit more complete once I put on lashes, mascara, and all that, my lipstick and everything. But yeah, that is going to be everything for the tutorial. I'm going to finish up and I'll let you guys know all my final thoughts about the Latte 2 palette. Alright, so to wrap everything up, I will say I do prefer the original Latte palette to the Latte 2 palette, and it's just a matter of one transition shade, and it kind of drives me crazy because otherwise a Latte 2 palette would probably win. But if this was just a medium tone brown, it doesn't need to be warm, it could be a neutral or even cool tone, but if this was just a little bit darker, because it just is just really light, like it really just blends in with my skin tone, and it's actually not that far off in like the depth of this shade. If they just had one more transition shade in here, I think I would like the Latte 2 palette more than Latte 1. But the practicality and like how versatile I can be and like a little bit more intricate with the transition shades in here make me like the original Latte palette more. The formulas are exactly the same. The shimmers are amazing. The mattes blend out beautifully as well. No issues with the formula, packaging, anything like that. But definitely just needs a little bit more with the color scheme, just with the transition shades. Also, personally, I don't see myself using strawberry milk or matcha ever in this palette. It's the same case for me with cold brew and double shot in here. Like, these are the two shades I've used the least, but I still feel like with these shades I could just use like a pop of color on the lower lash line that work with all of these other shades. But I would think it's a little bit trickier for me to make this green shade make sense with everything else in here. I guess you could do like a maybe like a mint chocolate chip kind of look, I don't know, with like some of these darker tones, but they're still like a little bit too pastel compared to a lot of these smoky tones, and I could be creative with it, but for an everyday wear, I'm not going to use those, and I'm going to be less likely to use those than the pops of colors in this palette. So those are all my thoughts on how the both of them compare. I do really like them both. I really am happy that I bought the Latte palette, but I will be using it with another palette. I've also been using it with the Going Coconuts palette from ColourPop, because this just has like some more brown transition shades, and I've just had this like on my vanity, and I've been using these two together, just like the transition shades in here with some of the deeper shades and the lid colors in this palette. So I'm definitely gonna get a lot of wear out of this palette. You will see me hitting pan on these shimmers. I love them so much, and probably on some of these deeper shades as well, but I don't think you're gonna see me use and love this palette like the Latte 1 palette. So those are just my overall thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about both palettes. Let me know if you ended up getting the Latte 2 palette. If you have any advice on how to better use the transition shades, what you like as a transition shade, or like a combination of like maybe two shades to make it work better, or how you would use these two shades, because like I have to go out of my way to use them. I could find a way to use them, but it's not like I'm gonna sit down and do my makeup in 10 minutes and incorporate this like bright green pastel shade. So that's kind of everything for both palettes. Let me know if you guys ended up purchasing the Latte 2 in the comment below. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.